When you start making Irish crochet, you might not feel confident enough to make a big project like a collar or a doily, but this is one little thing you can make. It's a Suncatcher to hang up in the window, and I used a Rho Square and decorated that with beads. I'm going to show you now how I went about it and how I stiffened up the fabric so that it would hang straight. So this is the Rho Square I made in a previous video. I've made it also with a larger hook, so this is a 1.5 hook that I made this with. You can see the size difference. The other one was made with a 1mm hook. So here is a good example of how needle size, hook size can affect the size of your work. I needed to make a frame to keep the work stretched while I was going to stiffen it. So what I did is I made a frame out of knitting needles and plasticine. You can also stretch out the work by pinning it onto some silver paper backing. So here's the granny square. I've stretched it out on some silver paper and I made a mixture of PVA and water, so I use about a drop of water and some PVA and mix it well. And now I'm going to cover all the crochet with the mixture. And then I'm going to let it dry in the sun. You need the silver paper because you don't want your granny square to stick and then not be able to remove it from whatever it was laid out on. So the frame's holding out pretty well. There's just 2 knitting needles and some plasticine and some pins to pin it in place. See, if all this moves while it's drying, it would be a disaster. I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. So here it is completely covered, and we'll see what it looks like when it dries. So today I'm working outside, trying to make the most of the weather because it looks like it's going to rain any minute. And if you hear any cows mooing in the background, that's because our town's having its local show, agricultural show, and it's just down the road from me. So this was the granny square that I stiffened with PVA to make a Suncatcher or a window decoration, and I used knitting needles and a bit of plasticine to hold it all together while it was drying. So I like it pretty much as it is, and I've got my bags of beads and bits and pieces. I get these from the local charity shops. There's always so much jewellery in there, and rather than buy them for quite a lot of money, I get them for a few pence. Another thing I use is invisible thread, and now I've got to decide what to do and how to decorate it. So I'm thinking about stringing some of these pinkish pearls with some of these pinkish coloured stones, or are they bits of shell, I'm not sure, and make tassels maybe for the corner, maybe for all 4 corners. I don't yet know what to do about the centre of the rose. I was originally thinking of using this bead, but I don't really like it. See what it looks like with a different colour. I might just stick with putting a pink bead in. Another thing I sometimes do is I take these bangles and I put a motif in it and hang it up. These are all things that come in really useful to make gifts. I tend to give most of my work away, usually to somebody who likes it, or maybe as a little thank you present, and they always go to a good home. Because I mainly crochet in white, I tend to have a lot of white coloured beads. The thing I'm going to do is get some of this nylon thread. You can decorate these things with anything you want, really. Anything that looks nice in the sun or in a window. Now I have two different kinds of pink, and I think this corally pink looks better than this mauvey pink, so I'll be using some of this. So this is the finished piece. I've put some beads in the corners, and in the center I've used a pink bead. So then I made some chains with some different beads, and then I hung in the middle, I hung the crystals from an old chandelier. I love finding these crystals because they look so pretty.